What is up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Everything Medicare Podcast. This is episode 69, and if this is your first time listening, my name is Christian Brindle. I'm your host. I'm a Medicare health plan specialist and expert just outside of Salt Lake City, Utah. And today, I have a really special guest with me, someone that I've been really excited to talk to, someone that I've learned a lot from afar, in how he's kind of changed a lot of things in a lot of ways that, people interact and how people consume and transfer information in the Medicare industry and the insurance industry in general. And his name is Justin Brock. If for those of you who haven't heard of him before, just a little bit of quick information about Justin, and then I'm going to jump right in and we're going to have a great conversation here with some questions that I really can't ask a lot of people that we interview. Not saying that they're not qualified to answer them or anything like that, but I think Justin is a real expert on the kind of topics that we're going to talk about today, and I'm really excited to talk about it. So Justin and me are very kindred spirits, you could say. Both of us grew up around the insurance industry, which I think is fascinating. So Justin grew up actually working with his dad and sorting Medicare supplement applications through boxes for old Medicare supplement carriers like Continental General or Forethought. And his dad was an agent for a long time, and Justin didn't think he wanted to be in the insurance industry at first at a young age, and neither did I. I can really sympathize with that. I didn't feel like it was something that was my passion or my destiny or whatever. So Justin went and joined the Marines at 18, and after some time, ended up having a wife, 2 kids, and he felt like he needed to change from the military, so he ended up going back home, working with his dad. His dad taught him how to get started and how to start selling in the insurance industry, and after a year or so doing things the traditional way, which we're going to talk about, Justin decided there was a better way to help people and a more friendly way than putting 20, 30, 40,000 miles on his car every year, which I can definitely sympathize with. Justin started using Facebook videos, webinars to educate baby boomers all over the area where his agency is in northeast Mississippi, and even in some other states like South Carolina, Indiana, etc. And we'll talk about the other states that Justin's company works with people in. His agency exploded, and before you knew it, they had over 10,000 clients, customers, just a couple of years, and their office helps over 2,000 agents and close to 13,000 clients. And so, Justin, thank you so much for being willing to do this. I know you're a really busy person, and I'm flattered that you took the time to do this. Just thank you so much for being willing to do this.
Of course. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So, first question I wanted to kind of jump into, and I think we'll just kind of dive right in here, because like I said, I know you're a busy person, and I want to respect your time. My first question is, and it's one I'm really dying to know, and I'm sure the audience would be fascinated to hear. You're one of the first people that I'm personally aware of that has embraced technology, especially 2000s technology and social media and the internet, to really bring people on Medicare information in an effective way, I feel. What made you figure out that you could bring information to people on Medicare this way? What was there like an aha moment? Talk about that for a minute, if you would.
So when I first came into it, I started talking to people, and a lot of other agents would say, senior citizens or baby boomers are not on Facebook and they're not on so and so. And when it kind of dawned on me that they were wrong, and I thought that this is my hunch that they were wrong, was when my grandmother, who was 83, added me on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
And she was on every morning, and I'm thinking, okay, if she's 83 and on there, and there are a lot of 66 and 62, 63, 64, 65-year-olds on there. And so when I first started getting into it, I didn't know the initial benefit to finding people to help would be. But I knew that over time it would be important to have that presence there. And then I was kind of blown away at how quickly it actually did happen, where I started getting calls, I started getting attention, and then, we started putting more and more into it, getting such good initial response. And then we started doing very well on Facebook. Since then, it's been kind of convoluted with very, very spam kind of ads. And so it's become slightly less effective, more, I think, because people are annoyed, kind of like with cold calls. They're getting a little annoyed with the way that they're being berated with the topic.
Right.
And so but doing it, we were actually just putting out solid information and getting response, and it was kind of before everybody else was doing it. And so that really helped us. And now I believe in all those mediums online to get the information out there. One that I commend you for doing is a podcast, because it does take a lot of work, and that's something that we haven't started doing yet. But we're doing YouTube, and we're doing Facebook, and we do a little bit on brand, and I think it's all part of it, because I think that the baby boomer generation shouldn't be viewed as, and beyond the baby boomer generation, shouldn't be viewed the same way that we viewed Medicare beneficiaries in the past, where we had to go sit in their living room and have tea with them and stuff. Baby boomers don't want that. They want the information they need. They want it from somebody they know they can trust, and they want to get the show on the road.
Yeah, no question. I mean, and that's fascinating to me. I can speak, because my dad, who, I started out working with, my dad just turned 65 last November himself, and he got on Medicare, and so my dad's a baby boomer, and my dad, for all the talk about seniors don't use Facebook, seniors don't use the internet, seniors don't use social media. I mean, my dad has an Instagram account. I don't think he quite knows how to use it 100%, but he's on there, and he likes things and things like that. And he's been on Facebook. Probably he got on Facebook before I did, way back when it got popular. And I just think, I think your ability to see that was, really unique, because I convinced myself of that for a long time, that baby boomers just can't, get information that way, or, they're just not, their eyeballs aren't there, and it's just been so wrong. So let me shift gears to this next question here. So anyone listening to this podcast, and this kind of piggybacks on the last question, is likely going to be pretty tech savvy. I had, we have people that reach out to our office sometimes, that listen to the podcast, and I'm only licensed in 3 states at the moment, so sometimes it's a little more limited, but we have people that reach out to us, and I've noticed that pretty much every single person that's ever reached out to us that listens to the podcast is fairly tech savvy, internet savvy, all that stuff. To the people listening at home, how do you think that they can use the internet to make their lives easier with their Medicare health plans?
So definitely a lot of the companies are making strides to catch up with their customer base or their clients, to create a more internet friendly situation. So I mean, you see this with like Mutual of Omaha and Humana and Aetna and some of the bigger companies, where they're rolling out platforms to where if you are internet savvy, once you get set up, you get on these platforms and kind of monitor things, where you can see if a doctor says, hey, I filed this claim, and your supplement didn't pay, or your Advantage plan didn't pay, or whatever it may be. Typically now you can get into your own portal and see if they're full of crap or not. And you can create a portal right into Medicare and see what's been filed with Medicare. So in those ways, that helps you out, some. If you get ancillary products or products that include dental and vision, it helps to be able to get on there, print off cards. You can even get things like on your smartphone now. You can have your card, right there on the phone, so you're not having to keep up with them, or if you lose them, it's okay, because you can just have a picture of it on your phone. So there's a lot of things like that on the forefront of it when you're researching. The internet can be as quickly your annoyance or demise as it can help you if you don't know what you're doing. Because if you go on Google and you start searching for things related to Medicare, you're going to get a ton of traffic right there at the top, and even some of the organic posts that come up will be people that are trying to collect lead information and they'll call you to death until they get you on the phone. And I'm not saying any of those organizations are bad. I'm friends with a lot of the ones that own them, and they do what we do. They do the best thing for people. Most of them do. Some of them are probably not good examples of that, but it can get to where it's annoying because a lot of times you're just looking for information. We try to put all the information out there on the forefront. We're saying, here's what all the supplements are, here's how Medicare works, here's all this. I want to explain it to you before I ever even talk to you. And then hopefully, in turn, when you get ready to use somebody to purchase your Medicare supplement or Medicare Advantage plan, since it doesn't cost you anything else, you come back and you use the person that helps you. Just like with Christian's podcast, if you listen to the podcast and you've learned a whole lot and you're getting ready to enroll, hopefully you would call him because he helps you with all of it. And there are other examples of this. There are a lot of good people in the industry, and there are a lot of bad people. So I would just say on the forefront when you're purchasing, just be careful not to necessarily use the first person that pops up on Google. Because one of the problems that I've seen with them is even when they're nice the first time, you might not ever be able to get those people on the phone again because those big agencies do have a lot of turnover, and sometimes that agent's been there for 6 months, and so it may not be a good fit long term. So, that's the two things where I think technology comes into Medicare is on the post side, getting set up and having access to more resources, and on the front side, there are a lot of good resources out there where you don't even have to talk to an agent before you're ready to purchase, and you can still learn most of what you need to learn.
I love it. I agree 100% with you there. I mean, and I think we've all, worked with somebody who just kind of worked with the first person they could encounter, and I've seen a lot of situations, I'm sure you have too, where, someone will sign up for a supplement with, Mutual of Omaha or some other big carrier, with a big agency, and they'll set it up for 6 months out. I don't know if some of the carriers still do that, but I know they did it recently, and they have a change of heart, or they're not sure if they made the right decision, or they just forget a lot of the information, and before their plan even goes into effect, they'll contact the agency, and the agent's not there anymore.
Right. That's a common occurrence, especially with the people that come up on Google a lot of times, is they have some agents that stay forever, and then they have a lot of them that are just turning over. Some of them hire hundreds of agents a year because they're losing hundreds of agents a year. So wow. That could be an issue, because when you call back and the other person's not familiar with you and you have no bond there, when you call us up, when you use an agent in our office, that agent is your agent forever, and we lose very few agents over time. Normally, it's if we have lost one, it's a very specific instance of they're just not effective, or they're giving them the wrong advice or something. But as far as these other places, a lot of their turnover is mostly due to they're recruiting out of college, and these people are not sure what they want to do with their lives, and this is kind of like just a stepping stone. The people we hire, we're hiring with the intent that this is going to be their career now, because we want to keep that agent there, building relationships, and I want them to have hundreds of clients that are their clients, and they take good care of them.
I think that's I think that's great, because I wish more companies had that approach. I think it would serve, people on Medicare really well, but yeah, I mean, I think that's fantastic. So let me switch topics here to this next question, and I think this is a question that I've asked everybody that we've talked to, and I've gotten different answers from everybody, and I don't think I've had anyone give me a bad answer or a wrong answer. It's just I think the perspectives are so great, because I think there's so many ways to answer this question. What do you've worked with a lot of different insurance companies, you work with multiple carriers, as do we. What do you recommend people on Medicare look for when they're picking an insurance company? Should they value the quality of the company, or should they value the plans that maybe necessarily just look good on paper, but they might not have maybe a great reputation, or maybe they not familiar with the company? If it came down to being able to pick between the two and they can't have both, because sometimes you have a great company with a great product, but maybe there's two plans that are close, but the plan that looks better on paper doesn't have the reputation as the other plan or something like that. What are your thoughts on that?
So, I mean, obviously, we lean in most of the areas that we market. Most of our prospects are calling us. That we lean to the original Medicare with a Medicare supplement side. Now, when we can, convince someone that that's the best way to go, a lot of that has to do with continuation of freedom of choice, not having to worry about a network coming in and out of, availability. And that's, just to make that more watered down and not sound so technical. When someone has a private Medicare Advantage plan, it might be great this year or the next year or the next year, and then all of a sudden the hospital that runs your, local area decides they're not going to take that anymore, and then you might be too sick to go back to original Medicare, and there might not be as good of a Medicare Advantage plan available. Whereas the original Medicare side with a supplement is a little more fluid. You kind of get what you get from the beginning, and it shouldn't be changing too much, if at all, over time. So those are two different concepts. So when you're picking a company on both of those sides, I would have different opinions as to how you would value the company. On the original Medicare with a Medicare supplement side, obviously the benefits are all the same. And so I would say that sometimes the name of the company is irrelevant if they have a good track record of not increasing their rates too quickly on their customers. And of course, it is the plan letter is the same. So because CMS does set in stone what a Plan F, Plan G, Plan N, et cetera, cover, if you're looking and shopping for a Plan G, it wouldn't, from the benefits perspective, it wouldn't matter which one you had. But from the perspective of who's going to keep my rate stable over time, so that if I do get sick and I can't change, I'm not having to ride out unreasonable increases, I would say that does matter. But it's not always a big company that does that. Sometimes some of the big companies actually are notorious for raising rates too quickly. So, for instance, we have a company here that, a couple of companies that most of my customers haven't heard of, but they're actually really good choices if you look at them on paper, like Pekin or IAC. Those are just companies that most people haven't heard of, but they, in our area at least, they've done a really good job keeping their rates low. They're actually lower now than when they started. And so my customers that have those are actually paying less than when they first signed up. Same with like Aetna or someone, but then there are companies that don't do a great job at that. And some of those companies are small and some of them are big. So, I don't think the name recognition is as much of an issue as having an agent that can look at their track record and help you make the best estimation possible as to which one's going to be good for you. It's going to start out low on price and hopefully stay low on price. On the Medicare Advantage side, I would say your bigger carriers are better. If you have an area where you have like a really hot plan that looks good, sometimes if it's not a brand name, like if it's some kind of, T&T insurance that you've never heard of, and their benefit structure is really good, well, it might be that they're trying to get a whole lot of people to enroll and then sell the company to someone else. And so in that case, the benefit structure can change abruptly because they're trying to sell out. That's what we've seen a lot of. So if I was doing Medicare Advantage, I would try to stick with the bigger names. Right now, Aetna's doing a really good job on Medicare Advantage in the areas that they're coming out. That kind of changes. And I would advise this too. If you're in an area that has 3 or more good Medicare Advantage options, then Medicare Advantage is a good possibility for you. If you're not, if you have one Medicare Advantage option, then I would say Medicare Advantage is a bad option for you, because if you only have one and then Baylor Hospital quits taking it, you can't switch to another one. So now if you're sick, you can't get a Medicare supplement. So that's a bad scenario. Whereas if you had three, and Baylor said, well, we're not taking Humana anymore, well, now, okay, I can switch to Aetna, or I can switch to United Healthcare. But there are a lot of areas that have one viable Medicare Advantage option, and that's playing Russian roulette, in my opinion.
I agree completely. I think that's a great rule too. I think more options typically means market's going to be more competitive. Like I lived in Florida for a year in 2017 and worked with a lot of people down there, and still do. And one thing I noticed, not saying there's anything wrong with the Medicare Advantage market where I'm from in Utah, in the Wasatch Front in Salt Lake, but the Medicare Advantage market is fine, much stronger than some other areas, but compared to Florida, where the plans are as rich as I've ever seen personally, and there's 25 carriers or something like that, I think that's a great rule, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. More carriers, and one or two carriers, probably you're stuck on that plan. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's a good rule.
Right, yeah. And we live in my area. There's basically one Medicare Advantage plan in 85% of the counties in the state, and it's Humana. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with their plan, but when you have, and this actually happened here in North Mississippi Medical Center, which is a large rural health system here that with no competition for miles and miles around, just said, we're not taking Humana anymore. Not even to the point where it was a PPO, so you say, oh, you could go there and now you got to pay out the network fee. They were saying we won't even file it unless it's an emergency.
Wow.
So it was pretty bad. A lot of these Medicare Advantage agents will say, well, it's a PPO, so you can still go there. Well, not if they won't file it for you.
That's right. If they won't see you, if they won't process the claim, that's a different problem altogether.
Yeah, that's not saying that Humana won't pay them. It's just saying that, you can go there, you front the cash, and then you file a claim yourself to Humana. I don't think anybody on Medicare wants to be doing that.
No, not at all. Not at all. So let me switch topics to a different kind of topic, and I'm fascinated to hear your answer to this, honestly. So in the insurance industry, our industry over the years, and I think it really still is to a certain extent, I don't think there's a whole lot of people that do what you do, or do it as well as you do, maybe I should say. But our industry is so focused on face-to-face meetings with people. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like you said, I don't think baby boomers necessarily need that as much as maybe past generations did. I just think it's a different day and age to a lot of extent. And sending postcards in the mail. You could even say that, a lot of the agents that are working with people are still very much old school in their approach. What is it about videos that you think that resonates with people so well today in a way that something in the mail just can't do?
I think I don't know if I've thought about this enough as to why it worked so well on baby boomers, but in video for me works very well. For me, in my ingesting information, I love video. I love it. That's how I learn the best. It's the auditory and visual response simultaneously. Then that's what I want to. That's how I like to learn. That and doing. Well, Medicare is not something you can just do. So you have to learn in some way, So I just think that there are certain people that respond to it really well, and there's probably certain people that would love a big written response. And I have an agent in our hierarchy that actually sends large letters. I'm 2-page letters out to all kinds of beneficiaries, and it just explains stuff in written form, and he gets a good response off of it. So there are different people out there that respond differently. I do think that society has trained us to respond to video. We've had TVs, in houses for a long time now, and everything's just going more to visual and audio response simultaneously. And so that's probably programming our brains a little bit. I think that I can't remember what the exact study was, but I heard something the other day. It's funny, you hear like grandparents say, "Oh, you need to get your kid off TV and out in the yard playing." But I actually heard a study the other day that actually senior citizens or baby boomers or people over 65 are becoming some of the most addicted to screens. So I think that might be one of the reasons it's worse is that people are glued to those screens. So if you can get in there and you can give them some information in that screen time, then that's working, because you gotta, for us, we have to put our information where you are. And mail is just so easy to throw away.
Yeah.
And it's easy to flip through a video too, but the way the internet works is I don't really pay for somebody that doesn't watch it. So it's, I think that's it's getting into Asian consumer crossing there. But from our perspective, I need people to ingest the information that I'm putting out as much as possible, because a certain percentage of those are going to allow me to help them with their Medicare. And so I want to put information out there that is where they are in a way that certain people like to digest it. And the kind of people that are going to see my video are already on a screen, and so they likely already respond to that. So I'm not having to worry about, if I send direct mail, I could be sending it to people. Everybody gets direct mail. They're going to open the mail up and they're going to say, I don't respond to the written word as well as I do video, but I've already paid to send it to them. With video, I'm really only paying to send it to people who are already on a platform that, they respond to visual multimedia. So I think maybe that's why it's working better, in some sense. And I mean, we've done local television too, and it's the same concept. Nobody has a TV on in their household and sees our commercial unless they watch TV. And a lot of times I think that actually helps, because they might be cooking and they just hear it, every day in their background, and over time when they're like, man, my Medicare supplement went up, they're like, oh, that TV ad I keep hearing, maybe I should call them, So I don't know. I think that for getting information to people, there's no one size fits all. There's no method that is the best. It's just we need to try to get our information to as many people as possible to create the amount of people that come to us, that the max amount of people we can help, because it's better for them, it's better for us. That's how we grow as a business, and that's how we help more people. So it's a win-win, however we do it.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense, and I'm exactly the same way as you. I consume and retain information better than anything else when I'm watching it in video form, because it's a combination of the visual and the audio. But absolutely, I mean, I think, and I'm sure, and I know I'm sure that you have as well. I've worked with a lot of clients that, they don't have internet still. I still have a lot of clients that's a case for them, and so they need things, and they need paper, they need this, they need that, they need things in a certain way. So that makes a lot of sense that it's more of a preference thing, but also maybe a society thing as we progress. And I think that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Okay, so this is a fun question, and you might have more than one answer to this. I'm not sure, but so working with people on Medicare as long as you have, you probably see people do a lot of things that just makes you, just put your forehead in your palm. Is there a mistake you see people on Medicare or people getting onto Medicare make that just drives you crazy? That you just, it's not, them doing this is going to hurt them more than help them long term. Something that, you look at the situation and see it could be avoided so easily.
Definitely. Yeah, the number one is buying the plan that your neighbor bought.
Oh, thank you.
Especially when it's especially drug plans or Medicare Advantage, because everybody's drug list is different and situation is different. And even if your situation is exactly the same, your neighbor might have made a bad mistake. And a lot of times if they tell you, I love my plan, you say, well, I would ask, what test have they put it to? If there's somebody that goes to 2 doctor's visits a year and they pay your little $15 copay with a Medicare Advantage plan, they don't really know the shortcomings of that plan yet, because they haven't had an observation period in the hospital. They haven't had a long-term hospital stay. They haven't been diagnosed with cancer. They haven't had kidney dialysis treatment. They haven't had all the big stuff that comes up. They haven't had durable medical equipment like an oxygen tank or a hospital bed or any of that stuff that puts a plan to the test. And then even if they had something to put it to the test, let's say it's a knee replacement. Okay, most Medicare Advantage plans do really good on outpatient surgery. So somebody that had a knee replacement and they paid $150 for their knee replacement, they're like, I went in and it was a $50,000 surgery. I only paid $150. So now your neighbor's telling you this, and you think, well, I want that plan. That sounds really good. And then your first test is you get diagnosed with melanoma or lung cancer, and you have to have some sort of ongoing immunotherapy or something to treat it, and you're paying 20% out of pocket, up to $10,000, and they want to refer you to a specialist, and they're out of network. So now you're paying a deductible, and all of a sudden you're thinking, wow, my neighbor's plan must work better for him than me. So that's a situation where I would say, find somebody, and there's a lot of there are multiple people like me and Christian and agencies that take all of these things into account. When we recommend a plan, you're not calling me and I say everybody needs this plan. That's never the case. I talked to a lady in Virginia the other day, sold her a Humana Medicare Advantage plan, and I would almost never sell that to somebody that lives right here in Mississippi. But in her case, where she was at, that was the absolute best thing for her. So it just depends on the scenario as to where somebody is geographically, what their health is like, what their expectations of their plan is, what prescriptions they're on. So many different variables there. What their budget is, if they qualify for any extra help, all kinds of different stuff. What if they have a life policy with an accelerated death benefit rider on it that may help them in the case that they have cancer. Things that that we would take into account that some of these people are not taking into account. So if your neighbor has a mutual Omaha Plan F, it's great coverage, but what if I told you that in your area the increase history on that one had been outrageous and that the price that it starts out at is way higher, than you should be paying. And it's not taking on Mutual Omaha. I'm just saying that every area is different. It could be Mutual Omaha, Aetna, Cigna. If you buy a policy because your sister in Idaho has that policy and you live in Utah, that could be a completely different concept where you're at. So you really have to prepare for your situation, not just do what your neighbor or someone else is doing.
That's just so gratifying for me to hear you answer that way, because I talk about that constantly. I feel like I'm talking to myself sometimes, about it. But I've always when I've talked about it, I've always said, when you make a decision based on your neighbor's recommendation, you're picking a plan based on their needs and not yours.
Right. Exactly.
And I think the way you laid it out is beautiful and perfect, and it's right on the money. I just think that that's a mistake that people just need to. You take what they have to say into consideration. You look at their plan, but you also make sure that it's going to work for you, because you're a different person altogether.
Right.
So basically, so I'm going to put this. I'm going to take a quick break. We will be right back. Welcome back, folks. Thanks for taking a break with us to listen to a word from this week's sponsor. I still have Justin Brock here with us, and we're having a great conversation about Medicare and Medicare health plans and baby boomers and all kinds of great stuff. Every single week I bring you a podcast where I discuss your Medicaid, your Medicare, your Social Security, and everything that has to do with that golden age called retirement. Justin, thanks for sticking in with us, and I'll just jump right back into these questions here because I still got quite a few. I still got a couple left. So kind of to piggyback on what we were talking about before, you're someone that's worked with not only thousands of people on Medicare, but you've also worked with thousands of Medicare agents all over the country. What do you think someone on Medicare should look for when they're trying to choose an agent to work with? To kind of piggyback, in the last segment when you talked about, there's good agents and bad agents. How can a person define a good agent from a bad agent?
I think, that's one thing where online really helps out, because you can find the ones that are already putting out good content for free right now. And if they'll allow you to digest content that's already helpful before they even talk to you, I feel like that is a good agent, because you can get an understanding of whether they know what they're talking about right away. And, and it just helps the decision process, move along by just being able to see what they actually know before they get you on the phone and try to hard sell you on something. Yeah,
and then I think that's one thing, that's one thing I respect about you so much and how you do things is you're very transparent, and you just you're not afraid to just kind of put things out there about your life and how you do things in your company, and I think you do a great job with that, and I think that's a great indicator. I think if people have information out there for you to digest, I think that's a great indicator, so you can kind of get an idea of what they know and what they don't know and kind of what type of person they are. So I love that.
Right.
So this is kind of a fun question. This one I'm going to shift gears to this. So like I said earlier on in the interview, you and I have kind of similar stories in how we got into this, where, whereas, we both started out learning from our dads. I do feel that for me, it gave me the advantage of having a really good teacher and mentor early on that maybe not everybody would have, and kind of helped me cut down some on the learning curve. Because Medicare and Medicare industry can be confusing for a lot of new people. Do you feel your dad played a big part early on in your career?
I think it was great, growing up and hearing Plan F, Plan G, Plan N, hearing just terminology being dropped around early on, so that when I started doing Medicare, I didn't, there was no, I guess, curb to understanding at least concepts like that. So that was the initial bonus from it. And there's so many other ones, but like when I would, he also told me things like, hey, this is a marathon, not a sprint. This isn't a get rich quick scheme. You're out there helping people incrementally, and then over time you can build up a good income and have a good customer base, and people are coming to you because of referrals. And he told me that, that early on, that if you build up a good business model, that, you really, if you make it through the first few years of eating beans and cornbread, you'll have a good, business, and people will be seeking you out. And that's totally true now, so we have a constant stream of people that are asking for our help, rather than having to go out and, just like forcefully solicit ourselves. It's just not necessary anymore. So it was nice having somebody help me set up the right way from the get-go. He would tell you that I've helped him a lot, because now, we do so much more business because of, me taking all that information and putting it online and helping him run that side of it. So I think it's been a mutually beneficial relationship. We went from him being a very successful independent agent out of the house when I was growing up, to now we have an agency with several agents and administrative staff here, so we can handle all the needs. And everything is very, very good, because we're not having to spend a lot of money to get someone to use us to help them anymore, because we've just created an environment of word of mouth and referrals, where we're constantly busy helping the next person that has been referred to us by somebody we've already helped. Right.
And that's something that I can relate to quite a bit too, because when I was growing up, my dad worked out of the house too, and when you're a kid and you kind of grow up with a kind of the environment where dad's working, dad's on the phone, dad's talking to a client. You have to be quiet. You have to stay away from his office, stay on this side of the house. And then as you get older, you learn about, you learn so much about the industry at a young age. I feel the same way. I think my dad kind of gave me a lot of fundamentals and a lot of roots that helped me, and just through his wisdom and experience. And then I'm kind of following in people like you or in your footsteps and trying to kind of branch out and put information out there to help people and, for Medicare education. And so, I think it's for me as well. I can relate. It's been a kind of a mutually beneficial relationship for us.
Correct. Yeah. Awesome, man. It's nice to meet other people that are on similar journeys. It's a small world.
Yeah. So, okay, let me jump over to this topic here. Okay, one question I've heard a lot over the years from potential clients, and I bet you have too, and some agents starting out in the business as well. In 2019, in the technology age, where we have everything at the palm of our hands, what use do people have for agents going forward? Do you feel that agents will always be useful for people?
So I think we have a very long road in the financial and insurance advisory sector before we get to, automation in that sector. I think it's the reason that it's outlasted retail and a lot of these other ones is there's still so many concepts that are hard to understand. Yeah. I was listening to, I think it was Entre Leadership or some podcast or book, and they read an excerpt from a mortgage, something about, 5 and 5 arms on mortgages. They started talking about mortgages, and I'm in the financial sector and I learn more and more every day, but they started talking about mortgages and I was like, I don't know what in the world they're talking about. And the whole point that they were trying to make is like, this is so complicating. Like, how can you really allow this to be done through artificial intelligence or through an algorithm on a computer? And there's a lot of liability that lies there too. When if a computer makes a recommendation and someone ends up being out of pocket a lot, technically, who holds the fiduciary responsibility there to that client's needs that they may have felt were met that weren't. And so I think it's a long road to computers taking over what we do. Even on the car insurance side, I've noticed a lot of people that have, and we don't do car insurance, but I have a lot of friends that do it, but these people that are getting their policies on Progressive or what have you, and they're purchasing, minimum liability coverage or whatever it is, and they're just kind of racing to the cheapest coverage, or they're thinking, I'll buy this coverage and that's enough to cover my car. But when it comes out in all actuality, there's not enough there to cover their car. There's not enough to cover their liability for actually being liable for someone's injuries past $50,000, which is pretty easy to get past. There's not enough to cover lawsuit damages. I mean, I walk around with a $1 million umbrella policy all the time on everything. Yeah. Now I raise my deductibles pretty high, because I can afford a good deductible. So we have like the 1% and 2% homeowners, insurance deductibles and things like that. But those are all concepts that it's hard for somebody let's say your job is I have a friend, he makes custom blue jeans. It's like an international business now. They do custom shop $500 pair of blue jeans, and they know everything there is to know about making blue jeans and selling them in Europe and everywhere. And they know all kinds of stuff that I will never understand. Yeah. But when he calls me to talk about health insurance, this is a guy that's, erected a multi-million-dollar business out of blue jean manufacturing. So these are smart people. Yeah. He calls me to talk about health insurance for his business. He doesn't know anything about health insurance. So it's a foreign concept. It's not a transactional process. If I buy groceries on Amazon's grocery app and then I go pick them up at the grocery store, they deliver to me because that's coming and that's happening in bigger cities, and I get a rotten avocado, I'm probably just going to throw it away, and just say, oh well. It's an avocado. If I get a rotten insurance policy and it ends up costing me $100,000 in extra liability down the road, yeah, I mean, that's a big deal. It's different than transactional processes, buying T-shirts, buying retail, buying groceries, buying, drinks, buying, things that you can do online that are really easy, buying informational products. That's easy. I sell some courses online to agents.
Yeah.
And if somebody doesn't like the course, I most of the time just give them their money back. It's not a big deal. But with an insurance policy, there's a lot of risk tied up there. There's a lot of responsibility. So I just don't think, I think that there's a lot of people pushing for it to go on the computer. And I think that a lot of them are failing miserably from a profit standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense to me. And, I've kind of noticed even with the millennial generation, which is my generation, you always hear about millennial generation, they want to do things their own and they want to do everything on the line. But when it comes to insurance specifically, like you said, I've noticed that even a lot of millennials, they would rather talk to somebody, they would rather get their questions answered, So I completely agree with you. I don't really see, I think there will always be a place for people to simplify things for people that are complicated.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I could see certain sectors probably going online more. I honestly could see group going online more because most large groups have a human resources person that can do all the research for them.
Right. Yeah.
So, that person could probably customize their plans online, because they have a point man that is going to do all the research and figure everything out. But without like somebody who is a subject matter expert or, because really when it comes to me to buy car insurance, I'm not going to sit around and research a bunch of different companies and policies and standards and concepts. I call my State Farm guy, and I might be paying too much. I don't know. All I know is I just say, hey, look, this is what I have. This is what is my liability is, at my income level and our assets and my name recognition here. I need this. And so that's what we, insure against. But I get him to do that for me because he knows that and I don't. Yeah, definitely. I mean, and kind of to piggyback off that, and you might be able to relate with this as well. I mean, I've worked with clients over the years that, intellectually speaking, are just leaps and bounds more intelligent than I am. Their IQ is probably so much higher than mine is if we both sat down together and took the same IQ test. And they're so intelligent in so many ways, and they're designers and architects and all these amazing things. And when it comes to their health insurance, they're, for the most part, they're lost, and they really, really do lean on me, and it just, it kind of puts into perspective how, for some people, this stuff is kind of tricky to figure out on your own, and then I think it's fascinating. Yeah, definitely. So it's amazing. I mean, just like what you just said there, with, I've had the same experience where I've been talking to people and they are, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this is a doctor I'm talking to, this is a lawyer, this is somebody, but when it comes to insurance, they're almost, they're as far as it goes on insurance, they're no smarter on insurance than the guys that came in that didn't graduate high school that I helped that worked in a factory his whole life. It's a different person, but that it doesn't. There's no difference on intelligence level when it comes to insurance. The only time where I have anybody that knows anything about it is if they did insurance in the past. And even those people a lot of times have it wrong. Yeah. They'll come in and say, I need Plan F. Plan F is the best. And I'm like, well, things might have changed since you wrote that policy 15 years ago. Yeah, maybe 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, but... Right. Well, so another question I wanted to touch on, to piggyback on the last one. Okay, so we kind of touched on, where you feel that the future of the agent is. What about the future of Medicare? Where do you see Medicare going in the next 10 years? Because you always hear whispers about Medicare running out of money. I think it already, I think that ship sailed a long time ago, but
going away for some reason or changing dramatically. And do you have any? Of course, none of us have a crystal ball. None of us know exactly what's going to happen. But do you have any type of kind of expectation?
I think that a lot of stuff depends on our ability to keep Medicare going as a nation. So the way I feel about it is I almost feel like Medicare, so first of all, let's say Medicare failing. Okay, Medicare failing to me and not working anymore because of the shortfall would be catastrophic. It would be like a domino, that all these other things would happen. Okay, so, for instance, if you had a shortfall and certain people stopped getting their medicines because of that, and then there started being cases of people dying because they weren't getting their medicines, and then, that would be like a domino effect of chaos ensuing. So I think that government, as discombobulated as it is, will keep doing things to keep that afloat. Like, I honestly think that the $15 minimum wage push has a lot to do with payroll taxes increasing rather than their desire to give everyone a livable wage. I think that's honestly, they don't want to say, hey, we want to increase taxes. They say, let's increase the minimum wage, and then, it also allows them to create a higher payroll tax because everybody's making a little bit more, so they get to take a little bit more and put that towards Medicare and Social Security and some of those things. If they can't get that to pass, I think that they'll do things like add more payroll tax naturally and just actually run on a tax platform or pass them whether they ran on it or not. I think that'll happen to protect us from the Medicare and Social Security shortfall. It's not to say that our country doesn't. We could technically have at some point a complete economic collapse, maybe even not be the strongest economic power. But I think that things would get shuffled around enough to protect that generation, even if it really hurt younger generations. So I don't think that for people who are, let's say, 50 plus, are in any real danger there. And I hope that nobody's in danger. I hope that they can figure out something to fix things. I mean, like I read something one time that said if we could cure Alzheimer's, that there would be no Medicare or Social Security shortfall, because that one ailment treatment of it is like, I think something like 25 or 30% of the entire Medicare and Medicaid budget. So it's just massive amounts of money go up into, so there's, who knows what's going to happen there. But I think that, as on both sides of the aisle, they're going to kick that can down the road as long as they can, because it keeps them all in power and keeps the gravy train rolling, if you will. For everybody. That's how I see it. Now, as far as like Medicare for all and all that stuff, I don't think it'll ever pass, because the studies showed that as many people were as for it when it was kind of a initial punch word in the first Bernie Sanders wave. Last election cycle. I believe that since then, as they've done more realization of concepts like, saying, okay, well, if there is Medicare for all, you don't get the option of keeping your private health insurance because they're going to abolish private health insurance options. And then people are like, well, that's not what I want. I want Medicare for all the people that can't get something else. I don't want it for me,
Right.
That's what you keep seeing from people. So I don't really foresee that happening, but I would say in my crystal ball, I don't think anything's going to change for 5 or 6 years at least. And then I think the changes will be minuscule to kind of keep everything going as it is. Maybe decrease benefits for people down the road, like change it to 70-30 or something. Who knows? Yeah. But the people that are already on it, nothing's going to happen to them. And the people that are kind of right there in the pipeline, I don't think anything's going to change for them either.
Yeah, and kind of going back to the, with the two of us, growing up around the insurance industry, I remember that my dad always told me, especially when I was starting out, that that he said, I've been hearing whispers for 25 years about Medicare is going away in a few years, or Medicare will be bankrupt by this time, or Medicare will be done by this time, and then those times come and go, and they find a way to keep it going, and it's just,
Right.
Every few
like
years.
Nostradamus.
Yeah. And so
that's how I've been hearing the same thing from my dad. He says the same thing. People have been saying that, and then he said, honestly, the more and more the government gets involved in healthcare, the more opportunity it creates for us, because they always screw something up, and then the more discombobulated and screwed up the market is, the more need there is for advisors.
Right. That's so true.
I mean, like Obamacare did definitely hurt some people, but at the same time, if you stuck around and tried to help people through health insurance, it created so much confusion. You had more customers than you knew what to do with.
Right.
In some ways, I don't think it's messed it up, and it never really affected Medicare as much as it affected health insurance for people not eligible for Medicare.
Right. Well, I agree with you completely, and I think that's a fascinating perspective for me personally. Because that's a question I get asked all the time from clients of my own, and I usually have something similar to say about it. I try not to get too political with people, because I never know, if something I'm going to say might irritate them.
I try to have an apolitical perspective on the concept, and
yes.
I try to tell them, like, this doesn't have anything to do with the way I feel about how any of this should go. This is my prediction of how it will go.
Yes.
I mean, I'm literally in my prediction saying there is the possibility that the whole country has an economic collapse and shit. I don't want that to happen. I'm just saying,
but it could happen
with our national debt and stuff. It could definitely happen.
Yeah.
I just think that when it does, there will be a restructuring, and the first people that I think will get taken care of will be your retired class, because, I mean, you have to take care of them, or they'll, or the results would be a nightmare for everybody. So, so I think that, I'm hopeful that even in the worst situation, we find ways to protect the people who have paid into the system for 50 years or more.
Yeah, definitely. Well, 2 more questions, Justin, and then I'll stop torturing you.
No, you're fine.
So my second to last question is, and I really like this question, and I'm interested to kind of hear your perspective on it. What do you think the Medicare industry can do better for seniors?
I think that the Medicare industry would be better to create a system that rewards advisors in a way that, like, takes people who are good advisors, who are running good shops with no complaints or almost no complaints, doing high volume, and actually invest, and rather than invest in their online enrollment platforms that do no good, in my opinion, they could invest that money into advisory firms that are doing a good job to help them grow and help more people. That would be something I think would be revolutionary, and would be, just a great way to, or at least create a system in place where when people call, that they actually can, they could say, you need to talk to this advisor. This is a Medicare approved advisor in your town, or CMS certified advisor, where they were referring out to the good ones, and that would squash out a lot of the bad ones, because, at some point you could say, well, let's just call Medicare and tell them to recommend us to an advisor, and they recommend you to the one who had a 5-star rating or whatever,
right,
based off of their recommendations in that area. And it could create more, regional and hubs for people who would do a good job, because they would be being graded. Just like with Medicare Advantage plans that are graded on those star ratings, they work harder and harder to create the best Medicare Advantage plan, which, I have my quorums with Medicare Advantage plans, but I have to say a lot of them are getting pretty good. I mean, on a lot of fronts. So, especially Aetna, I mean, that's commendable. They've created some great ones in some areas now, but they're doing that because they're being rewarded, and I think they could do that on the agent side, because I think it would help out the consumers too, because they would be, we're non-biased, we can arrive in the best interest of that client, and then I keep my star rating by having a very, very low percentage of claims, like complaints, in
Right.
any complaint. I feel like the Better Business Bureau for Medicare agents. I think that would be a great thing.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think that, not only would it reward the people that, are busting their hump for their clients and their people, and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they're there for them, but it would really kind of pull the sheets off of the people that aren't doing that.
Right.
Which, that's neither here or there, but, I think that's a fantastic idea, because I think it would help. I think it would help solve a lot of problems in the industry as a whole.
Definitely.
So, okay. So, last and final question I got for you. Talk about your company. What states can your company work with people in? And if someone was listening to this and they just really kind of identified with you and, your answers and your perspective, how can people get in touch with you to work with you or work with someone at your company?
Okay, so our company is our primary states would be, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee. But we do have a good Indiana, some other states. We're licensed in about 30 states, but most of those have been off of referrals from our current clients and those types of things. But we are, constantly growing to help more people. But yeah, our focus is kind of the Southeast. If somebody wanted to get in touch with us, of course, they can call our office anytime at 662-844-3300, or they can go on our website, which is BobbyBrockInsurance.com, and we have a lot of information on there. We're trying to add more and more information to make it the best informative site out there. I'm also on YouTube. If you look up Justin Brock on YouTube, Justin Brock Medicare, you could probably, but BobbyBrockInsurance.com is kind of our informative site where you can read about each of our agents and all that kind of stuff.
Well, great. And, I also know that there's, a lot of agents that listen to this podcast. And, if you're an agent out there and you're looking to, grow your business, I've personally done one of Justin's courses, to help with social media advertising and social media, having a presence. And I can tell you it's helped me tremendously, so I mean, even if you're an agent and you're kind of looking for some guidance, I'd recommend, seeking his content out, because it's really powerful and it's unlike anything anyone else is putting out there.
Awesome. I appreciate the kind words, man. Yeah,
of course. And Justin, again, I mean, I can't thank you enough for doing this and taking so much time to kind of talk with me. And I think it's going to help a lot of people. And I think a lot of people are going to benefit tremendously from your insight and your experience and just, your level of information that, they really probably aren't going to be able to hear from too many other folks in the industry. So I just can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for everything.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. This episode will air Saturday, the 29th, I believe. Yes, Saturday the 29th. Every single week we bring your podcast on Mondays and Saturdays. If you're listening to us on a platform that allows you to subscribe, please subscribe for future episodes, and I can't wait to talk with you next time. Thank you for listening.